wrestling fans, and welcome to your crispy Saturday morning news headlines. I'm very sorry for being so annoying. Sam, how are you doing this fine Saturday morning?
Doing well, mate. Doing well. Got up nice and early to watch SmackDown. It was a strange old week, but, you know, a good one all the same. How about you?
I'm not too bad. I haven't seen a second of SmackDown yet, but I have seen a massive return, more on which we will speak about in a little while. Here are your big headlines, though. Brace yourselves. Careful now. Steady on now. Take a seat. They might knock you over. They're that big. 3 huge WWE superstars are not scheduled to appear at the WWE Royal Rumble event of 2021. You've done it now. You've gone and made a big mistake, Mark. Roman Reigns' response to The Undertaker's claims that today's WWE locker room are soft. And we have the latest on the WWE WrestleMania 37 card. More on that in a little bit. So to kick things off, we're going to this week's edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, hearing from Big Daddy Cool himself, Dave Meltzer, and he's provided an update on some big names ahead of the Royal Rumble, 3 of which, as we're sat here, or when he was sat there penning this week's Wrestling Observer newsletter, they are not scheduled to appear at this year's Royal Rumble event. And I'll tell you the full quote in full, just to make sure we don't, you know, infer some things incorrectly. The only thing we do know, this is Meltzer penning some words down on a bit of paper. The only thing we do know is Brock Lesnar is not under contract nor scheduled for the show at the moment. Nor are Becky Lynch or Ronda Rousey. Rousey is still under contract, though, through the 10th of April, which would be day 1 of WrestleMania. Obviously, she could do a new contract if both sides wanted that. So there we have it, Sam. Brock Lesnar, Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey not scheduled to appear at tomorrow's big extravaganza. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know if I was expecting Becky to return this quickly anyway, because obviously her and Seth have just started a family. So I figure that one's, you know, you can't really say excusable. That one's, you know, there's probably a good reason for the fact Becky Lynch may not be there. Ronda would be interesting as a return, because I don't know how they would handle it. I think they'd have to turn Ronda heel at this point, because the audience really kind of turned against her toward the end, didn't they?
Mm. Well, she turned on the fans as well.
She turned on the fans.
People who appreciated her efforts.
It was sort of mutual dislike, wasn't it?
Yeah, people who appreciated her efforts were crapped on by Ronda Rousey. Now, that left a sour taste in my mouth, so it did.
And Big Daddy Brock, I think Brock's, you know, if he comes back, it's going to be a Mania thing, maybe once a year. Like, I don't think we're going to see Brock to the volume that we've seen him before. Yeah, from this point onwards. Say
what you want about Brock, but he is fantastic, and of course he was the arguably the star of last year's Royal Rumble match, and it's always WWE's business is always better when Brock Lesnar's around us. No matter how infuriating the booking is, where he takes the Universal title hostage for a couple of months and you ever see him.
Well, he's taking it on a nice hunting trip, right? That belt never got to go anywhere interesting. It just saw hotel rooms and arenas. That was it, and now it gets to go in the great Michigan wilderness.
So just after hearing that news, I just need to check my Paddy Power account. Would you?
Minnesota,
that's where he's from. Yeah, the Vikings. Aruga, that's what they say, isn't it? Aruga, go the Vikings.
That's the one.
But after reading that news, Sam, I'm just checking my Paddy Power betting app, and it would now appear that Brock Lesnar is going to be the favourite to be number 30 in the Rumble and therefore win the Rumble, and Rousey and Lynch are now joint favourites.
Oh God, that would be a scary ending, though, wouldn't it?
That is the scary end of the people.
I mean, if Lesnar turns up at 30, the pop would be insane anyway, because it's so unexpected. But
from who?
Well, from people that you would usually be there. But it would be one of those pops where it's like, yeah, oh, no, and everybody would get really nervous, and then Brock would walk out and take the belt on a lovely trip again.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. But speaking of the Rumble, we were finding ourselves in a position where, for some strange reason, WWE were going to reveal the 30th entrant for the Men's Rumble and numbers 1 and 2 in the Women's Rumble on an episode of Backstage Taken. One of the big things of the Royal Rumble for the men's match anyway, the number 30 entrant, the last man in, taking that away, the surprise of it all. And I wasn't a fan of that, so thankfully, WWE clearly watched Cultaholic, and they've seen me moaning about it on the podcast and a news video on Tuesday, and they've changed it now, because now, as things stand, they're going to reveal the first 2 entrants of the men's match, and now, Sam, This is how I know they watch Cultaholic. Natalya and Tamina will battle it out to determine the 30th entrant in the women's match. Woo-woo! The Tamina train is pulling out the station. But this is good news, in my opinion. The number 30th spot in the men's match being a surprise once again. The intrigue's there. It's just a natural sort of thing to keep a surprise, isn't it?
It also dictates that they've sort of worked something out, and it had to change. They couldn't drop that information now. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that means something mental is going to happen at 30. You know, it could be anybody. Could be anybody. Could be anything.
Brock Lesnar.
Could just be Okada. Just imagine that. Just Okada rocks up. It'd be like, what?
Could you stop saying names of that thing in the Far East there? Because they're going to demonetize this video if you're not careful. After
they don't own people's names, so...
But just to give you the full updated Royal Rumble card, of course, we have the WWE title match, which is Daddy Drew McIntyre defending against Goldberg. The Universal title last man standing match between Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens. SmackDown Women's Championship match between Sasha Banks and Carmella. Women's Tag Team title match between Asuka and Charlotte Flair defending against Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. The men's Royal Rumble field is currently Daniel Bryan, Bobby Lashley, AJ Styles, Randy Orton, Otis, The Miz, Jey Uso, Jeff Hardy, Cesaro, Sami Zayn, Dolph Ziggler, Shinsuke Nakamura, Big E, John Morrison, Sheamus, Mustafa Ali, Edge, Big Bally Bastard Baron Corbin, Ronald Mysterious, his son Dom, and finally Braun Strowman, Sam, who made a big return to last night's SmackDown. Just give me a little bit. Of course, you'll be back with Graded later today. I'll be back with the WTF moments from last night's SmackDown. A little noise, a little reaction to Braun Strowman's big return.
Oof. There's your noise.
Oh, saucy. 9 more names to be announced, of course, for the Rumble match. Well, I guess 8, because we all know now that Brock Lesnar's going to win. And as for the women's Royal Rumble field, we have Nia Jax, Charlotte Flair, Bianca Belair, Bayley, Mandy Rose, Dana Brooke, Peyton Royce, Alexa Bliss, Shayna Baszler, Shayna doing double duty, Liv Morgan, Ruby Riott, Tamina, and Natalya. So I guess the loser of Tamina versus Natalya is still going in the Royal Rumble match, and 17 more to be announced. But of course, Natalya, you're buggered, aren't you? Because the Tamina train is going in last, and Tamina is going to WrestleMania.
Nah.
Point at the sign.
Natalya is a heart. Commentary does not get that over enough.
She has a heart.
She's going to win. Natalya's got to win that, surely.
Shut up, Sam.
Surely.
Moving on before Sam earns a beating with these two fists.
I will barricade myself in down here. There's no way you can get in. There's bars on the window already.
Roman Reigns has appeared on the Sports Illustrated Media podcast with Jimmy Traynor. What's this train gimmick, bro? He's responded to the Undertaker's comments from the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, where, of course, he said that certain elements of today's WWE product are soft because back in his day, men were men and they all carried knives and guns and they sorted business out with fights and they did cocaine and they stuck steroids in their arse and they didn't play video games like the big softies of today.
It was just so bewildering to hear that come out of Undertaker's mouth. But I get it from like a romantic standpoint. You know, like everybody likes, well, not everybody, but quite a lot of people like cowboys in the Wild West. They would love to live there and go back and see it for maybe a day, but realistically, you wouldn't want to be stuck there where you could die from toothache. Like, I get it from that standpoint where it's like, oh God, those were the days when all the really weird, crazy stuff happened and, people were men and it's like, fine, whatever, but at the same time, times change, man, and it's a lot better. It's a lot better these days.
It seems like a lot safer, a lot nicer place to be a wrestler, but of course, that's not manly, is it? That's not manly at all.
What is manly anymore, Ross?
I don't know, Sam. You're asking the wrong person there. But Roman Reigns, of course, is widely recognised as one of, if not the locker room leader in WWE today. So he has responded and he said the following: to be honest, and this is going to make some headlines, but it would have been too easy. What it is in this scenario, I've got no idea. Roman Reigns continues: I feel like John Cena said it before. It's a challenge to be PG. It's a challenge not to have to do to go down the cheap route. Being able to shove everything up everyone's ass, to do stuff, to just chug beers. Take that one, Stone Cold. And I'm not taking anything away from the performance and physicality of what they did and the stories they told in the ring. These guys were great performers and great in-ring wrestlers, but the character development was easier. If I could just start chugging bourbon and smoking cigars, imagine what my character could be. Oof, the mind boggles, so it does. We could even go further on this mob boss thing. It's more challenging what we do now. It's the facts. He's turned into Rafa Benitez as Roman Reigns. This is why the business is bigger. That's why we have a bigger platform now, and that was all due to the work done before us to get to this point. But at the same time, if we don't do it in the way we do now, it wouldn't be that way. It was a different time. Very diplomatic by Roman. A massive disappointment for hacks like me who just want to see people bitching at each other.
I think, it's weird because the industry might now be bigger in terms of its overall scope and reach. But back in the day, I'd argue the stars were bigger than the company at that point, at the height of that. And so they were rock stars. And the world was a very different place, and people were rewarded for behaving a certain way. And I think, with the rock star mentality and the fact that these people were, on every like teenage kid's wall, and everybody had T-shirts, and these guys would live that kind of lifestyle, I guess. But it's just today, it's a job, and they rightly see it as a profession that they need to protect and protect themselves to make as much money for as long as possible. And be able to walk away in the end. And screw that. If it means a game of FIFA rather than, 15 somas, then...
Yeah, but that's manly, Sam. Taking somas and then having a drink of whiskey and then going to a strip club, that is manly stuff.
And nobody's saying you can't go to a strip club, You can still do that, just less of the cocaine.
Moving on then. So we have Roman Reigns telling Undertaker basically what for without saying what for. Very diplomatic from Roman Reigns. But moving on, for the first time since last February, Jon Moxley has returned to their promotion based on the other side of the world, which I like to call fresh Far Eastern the Graps, because of that bloody broadcast company who come after us, even if we just put their name in the title of a video.
Sniff the name, just even if it's gently alluded to, they're just...
So then, on the US FFETG Strong Show, that's easy for us to say, Moxley confronted Kenta. Kenta, of course, has been the number one contender for the FFETG United States Championship since winning
the United States title.
Fresh Far Eastern the Graps, FFETG.
Why is it Fresh Far Eastern the Graps?
Because fresh replaces one word, Far Eastern replaces another word, and the Graps replaces two words. FFETG. Kenta won a certain cup last year, of course, to become the number one contender. And just in case you want to know how this one went down, Bullet Club were doing some utter poo-housery in the ring following the main event. The lights went off. The lights came back on. He hits a Death Rider on Kenta. Then he talks about not caring about the red lights. Give me the green light, because I'm ready. He didn't do that. We'll have a match in Japan at some point, Moxley said.
Pitbull comes out and everything.
He confirmed that we'll have a match, him being Moxley, we'll have a match against Kenta in Japan at some point. So your very considered and very careful reaction to that, Sam?
I think it's about time. It's sort of something that should have been done a long time ago, but the world hasn't permitted us the ability to do it so far, and you may as well make a big deal out of it because it's been so long, as you said. That he can return and hopefully do so in front of a rather sizable but safe audience and have that moment, because one big thing that has been taken from us this past year or so is the moments, those crowd reaction live moments that make wrestling what it is a lot of the time. So I think the match should be great. I don't know what's going to happen, but maybe it'll be something to do with strengthening or pushing that link further away between that certain company over in that their country there in Japan and AEW.
Fresh Far Eastern, the Graps. But moving on now, congratulations to NXT announcer Wade Barrett, who officially became a citizen of the United States. He confirmed the news yesterday on his Twitter machine, where he tweeted, "Today, after 13 and a half years living in this great nation, I have been granted citizenship." Citizenship. Thank you for embracing this Englishman. Welcome to side. I will continue to support you in everything you do to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Cheers. United States citizenship.
Can you...
It takes a while to get the motor going on a Saturday morning. I don't know what it is.
It does, yeah.
But congratulations to Wade Barrett, you turncoat. He's turned the weens against us. I'm joking, of course. But now we have an update on the WrestleMania 37 card, which, of course, comes again from Big Daddy Cool himself, Dave Meltzer, in this week's Wrestling Observer newsletter, where we know via Dave that one match has been finalised, and that is the Roman Reigns match. Could it be against The Undertaker after this war of words I've got? It's not, of course. This is the quote from Dave. He says, we don't know who the opponent is, other than it's not Nakamura. So he sat there and gone, we've got no idea who Roman Reigns is facing at WrestleMania, but for damn sure, it's not that prick Nakamura.
Basically, he might have found out who Nakamura is facing at Mania, but rather than report that, he's reported, well...
Yeah, it's a strange sentence, isn't it? It's a strange one. It's a strange way to take, but that would in turn infer that Nakamura is not winning the Rumble, which means I need to cash out my £25 Nakamura bet, which, by the way, Sam, I think
he could win the Rumble, but have that taken off him. You never know.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Because if it's Roman could have him beaten down horribly. I've got a feeling Jimmy's going to return this week to help Jay and help Roman win at the Rumble. So maybe if there's three of them and Nakamura was to win, maybe they could take care of him quite easily.
Yeah. What should I do? I can cash out for £178 as well.
I'm terrible at gambling, so I'm not the guy to ask. I'm
going to leave it until about 10 to midnight tonight. I'll have a couple of whiskies when I get home after work, and I'll make my call then. I think I'm going to cash out, just to play it safe.
Just to be safe.
Meltzer continues in the newsletter. Ringside News reported Cena on the show, WrestleMania 37, of course, which was confirmed as a plan, but what his role or match would be or is undecided at the time of writing. So John Cena, it would appear, is nailed on for WrestleMania 37.
I'd seen somebody touch on this just a little while ago online, and I thought it was an amazing idea, and that would be to have Cena featured during the Fiend match, if there's a Fiend match, and essentially have another situation where he can either get out of the Firefly Funhouse or he's just a part of it, and he's just in there against his will still.
That could actually happen, Sam, because in the same report from Meltzer, Orton versus The Fiend was on the Rumble card in a Firefly Funhouse match and now doesn't appear to be. That, it would appear, is being saved for WrestleMania, so that's where your idea there could come into play. Edge is now open to win the Rumble and challenge either McIntyre or Reigns at WrestleMania, and therefore make me your Cultaholic wrestling champion, of course. So there we have it. What's your reaction to potentially Orton versus Fiend not on I'll say for WrestleMania, I should say.
I think it makes sense to do one big crazy Fiend match a year in the style of that first Firefly Funhouse match. I think Mania is the perfect point for it, and while we're still probably up in the air about whether there will indeed be many fans at all in the arena, it's something you could get away with for a great deal of the match just being pre-recorded, and then if they do want to do something in front of the live audience, they can have them, appear in the arena and black out all the lights, and then lights come up and they're just there. Because Bray was teleporting Cena around a lot, wasn't he? So there is options if there is a live audience, and then if not, and it all goes wrong, then you can make that 40 minutes long if you want. It's because with it being pre-recorded, they can get it all right.
And finally, there seems to be utter pandemonium when it comes to WrestleMania 37, because Meltzer writes, those who have been around the company for a long period say that there's never been a situation where this late in the game so little has been locked in for WrestleMania or even teased on television. So basically Meltzer's covering his own arse there. Cards subject to change. Never mind what I write.
Freeform jazz. That's what they're doing this year. They're just going to wait till the day. Vince is going to line everybody up and he's going to be like, right. And he's just going to put random matches together and none of it's going to make sense for 8.5 hours. It's going to be class.
Yeah. Well, 6 hours. 3 hours. Apparently it's going to be 3 hours each night.
It's 2 nights again, isn't it?
2 hours, yeah.
Yeah.
More of that, please, WWE. It's a shame that's coming to an end, but that's besides the point. That is it for your Saturday morning wrestling news headlines. As I said earlier, Sam will be back later today with the graded for last night's SmackDown. I'll be back with the WTF moments for last night's SmackDown. I'll be streaming on Twitch again tomorrow morning, doing some FIFA-licious for you, baby. Twitch.tv/Cultaholic. Adam is doing a Royal Rumble play along. Jumping the gun there, Ross. On Twitch, twitch.tv/Cultaholic tomorrow evening. And then on the YouTube, Adam, of course, will be live streaming the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. So if you're lonely and sad during these lockdown times, don't worry. Adam Pacitti will be your friend. Join him on whatever the link is on the YouTube, Sam. I've forgotten what it is. What is it, Sam? Save me.
If it's YouTube, it'll be youtube.com/cultaholic/live, I believe.
That sounds familiar. It could be wrong.
If
but
not,
right.
it'll be on the screen below us, and we'll both look like absolute idiots here.
Yes.
Nelly said a swear.
I did earlier. See you later.